Hello, my name is Rusty Coones, and I have with me Mike Corbin, inventor extraordinaire, inducted into the Motorcycle Hall of Fame in 2000 by the AMA, one of the world's largest seat and accessory manufacturers, also had Corbin's Ride On TV show. He's developed fitness equipment, furniture, electric-powered bikes. He's been a record holder in Bonneville, and much, much more. The man is a genius. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing fine, Rusty. Nice to see you again.
You too, man. Been a long time. Hey,
Yeah,
you don't have any plaques on the wall back there behind you, do you?
I got a couple.
You got so many plaques. I bet you probably got a garage with a bunch you can't even put on the wall. You have so many.
There's some that never made it up there yet.
Yeah, that's impressive, man. So look, you have a great and a long story. I mean, you're phenomenal in the industry, and I really appreciate you taking out the time. And before we get into all your endeavors, let's go back and talk about where you started on two wheels. I think it was in the 50s, right?
Yeah. Well, I was in high school and I was 15, and my friend had a Vespa motor scooter, and I envied him and hung around with him and learned about it. He used to let me ride it. So then I bought a Lambretta motor scooter, and we were only 15, but we used to ride them to high school. And my parents didn't want me to have a motorcycle, so I hid it at Ernie's house. One day we crashed on the railroad tracks in the ice. You go diagonal across the railroad tracks, and those little scooter wheels would slip. So I went back to Ernie's house with the scooter, and I'm all scrubbed up. My jeans are all torn. I got a little bit of road rash, and I go home, and my mother says, "You bought a motorcycle and you're hiding it at Ernie King's house." She saw right through that plan really quick.
What happened after that? Did they take away your rights to ride the motorcycle for a while, or did you just keep doing it?
Yeah, they finally let me bring it home and put it in their garage. And that way I told them, I said, well, I have to leave it outdoors, and the tires get cold and it doesn't work right. So they let me take it home to the garage finally.
That's one of the things about being a kid, man, is like you want a motorcycle, and half the time the parents don't want you to have it. I worked for my dad. He had a crop dusting business. When I was 19, I got my first Harley. And he was okay with it at first, but then I got in an accident after a couple of months. He said, "You buy another Harley, I'm going to kick you out of the house and I'm going to fire you." Well, as soon as I got my insurance check, I had a bike picked out. I came home that night. And I ride up to the house, and I'm walking in the door, and he met me at the door. As I told you, you get another motorcycle, you're fired, and you're kicked out of the house. I said, "All right, can I come in and get my clothes?" "Nope, you can't get your clothes either." So I was done, man. I couldn't work there anymore. I couldn't live there. And I was up in Madera, California, so I had to come down to Orange County, California, and work for my uncle. Well, 41 knucklehead. But anyhow, go on. So you had this Vespa, and then luckily your parents let you keep riding it after the accident.
They let me keep riding it. So then I got my driver's license when I was 16, and I had a job. So I used to go to the Little Green Triumph shop in Massachusetts, and I was born and raised in Massachusetts. And he had a 1-year-old Triumph 59 Bonneville. And so I bought that on time, layaway, left it there. Used to bring him over $10 to $50 a week, depending on whatever I could scratch up. And finally got it. And it was the first Bonneville, and that was the bike that everybody wanted in those days.
That was a cool bike. Yeah. Really cool.
Very cool.
And was that with the Bonneville? It was a side-by-side twin, and some of them have the single carb, some of them have two?
Yeah, the Bonneville had the two carburetors. And then
what was the one that had, was it the Tiger with one or something?
Would have one carburetor.
Okay, gotcha.
And actually, a lot of people think the Tigers are better because the fuel is balanced more,
Oh, yeah.
Carburetors used to vibrate, and they'd go out of balance all the time.
Would they have the Amel carburetors on those?
Yeah, those Amel pot metal carburetors, and the slides would vibration rates hell with them all the time, But yeah, so I had that Triumph. That was the greatest bike going at the time.
They were. They were. So after that, give me a little bit of history about what you were working and doing with Pratt and Whitney during the Vietnam era.
Well, I went in the Navy when I was 17. So I was an electrician on an aircraft carrier. Got a funny Triumph story for you. Like, I went to boot camp in Great Lakes, Illinois. Then I went to electrician mate school in Great Lakes, Illinois. So then I went home to Boston after I got out of electrician school. And I decided I was going to go on a ship in San Francisco to Ranger, USS Ranger aircraft carrier. So I decided, okay, I'm going to ride that Triumph across country to California, and I'm going to ship my sea bag out to California on a Greyhound bus. So it took me about a week to ride to San Francisco on my Triumph. You know, if you went much over 65 miles an hour, they'd shake themselves apart in those days.
Yeah.
You had to kind of fix it and sleep next to it on the way out. Didn't have much money. So I finally found a place to leave the bike, and I report aboard the USS Ranger for duty. And about a week later, the head electrician, the chief electrician on the Ranger, says, you know, you guys should come out of that electrician school and you think you're pretty smart. He goes and says, you know, you're just 17 years old. What makes you think you can fix anything on an aircraft carrier? And I said, well, Chief, I rode a Triumph from Boston to San Francisco. And he says, you're going to be okay, Corbin.
Hey, what was the range on a gas tank on that Bonneville when you were going gas stop to gas stop?
Yeah, they were pretty good. I don't really remember, but it wasn't anything you worried about. They had a pretty good sized gas tank on them.
Yeah.
And
you were probably doing, what, 100 miles between gas stops, roughly, or something?
I guess probably 100, 100 and a quarter, something like that.
Yeah.
Nobody really paid attention to that in the old days. I mean, you know, I can remember asking guys, so how far is the next gas station? I can remember asking that, but I don't remember. That was, you know, you got to remember this was 65 years ago.
Sure.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, but it was a good bike.
Right on.
Then I got out of the Navy, and then I went to work for Pratt Whitney. I was an electrician there in 1964.
So in 64, you started working with Pratt and Whitney?
Yeah.
And that was jet engines?
Yeah, they made jet engines. They were the premier jet engine of the world at the time. Them and Rolls-Royce. And but what I did is I moved machine tools like folded turret lathes. I became kind of really good at moving a folded turret lathe. And during the Vietnam War, Pratt Whitney was moving their machines to all these small machine shops all over New England. In case we got bombed, they'd have their machine tool capability all spread out all over New England, right? So I was busy all the time moving folded turret lathes.
Now, were you guys making the engines for the helicopters and for planes, or just
fighter jet engines, and we made the helicopter, the JT-9. Yeah.
And during that era, they were shipping so much over to Vietnam. I imagine they were really busy, huh?
Oh, they were busy. There was I worked on what they call Willow Street. It's in East Hartford, Connecticut. There was 30,000 people working in there at that time.
Wow.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Massive.
One of the greatest machine shops you ever saw in your life.
And all that's gone now, right?
That was before CNC machines. Everything ran on paper tapes in those days.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, Pratt Whitney still makes engines, but they're not really competitive on the big ones, I don't think.
Yeah, but they don't have like 30,000 employees or anything like that going on anymore, right?
Oh, most engines now are going to, you know, there's fighter planes still, but most of the engines are going for the passenger planes, you know.
Yeah, yeah, for commercial. Yeah.
And all those guys in that business.
So it looks like in 64, you got a Norton Atlas.
Yeah, in 1965, I bought a Norton Atlas.
Oh, 65? Okay.
And that was the biggest engine at the time. That was a 750cc. So
I remember those. Yeah.
the idea was, okay, well, that's 100 cc's bigger than a Triumph, you know.
Oh
That
yeah,
was
in
a
the
good,
day that was a big motor. Yeah.
that was, yeah, it was a good bike, and it was a Norton Atlas. It had the feather bed frame, and they really handled it quite well. They were a very nice bike.
Yeah, a lot more agile than the Harley,
But
you know.
yeah, well, there wasn't many Harleys around in those days. I mean, there was big twins, and there was guys keeping them alive, and you know, the Sportster was on the way. Harley was working on the Sportster to compete against the Triumphs and flat tracking and everything else. And but there was more English bikes around in those days. You got to remember, in the '60s, for instance, there was about 65,000 new motorcycle registrations a year in the United States.
Oh,
35,000 of them were Triumphs.
wow, more than half. Huh.
In the '60s only made 10 or 12,000 bikes a year. So
Wow, that's
they were
amazing.
a minority in those days, you know. So we
Yeah,
most were raised on the English bike.
yeah, see a lot of the photos and stuff from back then. I noticed a lot of people rode the BSAs and the Triumphs,
Yeah.
you know, stuff like that. And you know, for a youngster, they're a lot easier to move around. You know, a lot lighter than the old
Yeah.
Harley bobbers and or even baggers. You know, those things were real heavy. You know, for the day.
Yeah, it was a matter of money, you know, what could you afford? And
Sure. Yeah.
buy a brand new Triumph, you know, for like $1,100, brand new.
Yeah. What was the Harley that
I don't know what they were. I don't remember.
they were too expensive?
Yeah, I think Sportsters started out about 1,600 when they first came out.
Yeah.
65
Wow.
came out.
So you started customizing that Norton, right?
Yeah, so I decided, you know, um I wanted to fix it up like the Hells Angels bikes, you know. And like when I was in the Navy, I was near Oakland, so we used to hang around down in Oakland and watch the Hells Angels, and they were the first ones. They were putting extended fork tubes on the Sportsters, and they had the higher handlebars, and they bob off the rear and front fenders, you know. So I used that influence that I watched out in California, and I wanted to do that to my Norton Atlas. So I did all that in my garage, and then the seat looked terrible. So I decided I got to make a better looking seat. So I took that seat all apart and I reshaped the foam with a turkey knife. Then I went down and I bought some leather. Then a lady who lived next door to me was an industrial seamstress, and she made a nice cover for it. So in 1965, I go to a rally in Grafton, Vermont in the spring. And in those days, we used to get one motel room, 4 guys, and have 2 double beds in it. And then we'd bring the bikes into the motel room.
Yes, nobody'd steal it.
That was the problem, you know. So we'd be in the room. They have 4 guys. We'd always have get a keg of beer or a couple of cases of beer. So we'd share the cost of one room, and the 4 of us had been there with 4 bikes all crowded in there, you know. Then we'd all drink a bunch of beer, and then we'd all be crowding into the bathroom, you know. So the next day we go downtown in Grafton, Vermont, and there was quite a few people around, maybe 100 guys. This guy says, "So where'd you get the seat for the Atlas?" I said, "I made it." I said, "Well, I like the seat. I'd like to buy it." And I go, "I can't sell it to you. It's just my own bike, and I got to ride it home." He said, "It's really nice out." He said, "Why don't you just fold your jacket up and ride home on that? I'll give you $40, you know." And I'm thinking, no, this is 1965. So $40, that's like saying $400 now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we would go to a rally with $20 in our pocket in those days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm riding home with the $40 on my jacket, and I'm thinking, boy, that felt good, you know, because it only probably cost me $10 to redo it. So I got home and I started making another seat, and in my shop, and my helper came along, and he says, "So where's your seat?" I said, "I sold it. I'm making another one." He says, "Well, make me one." He had an Ironhead Sportster. So I said, "Well, I don't I don't want to make you a seat. This is just my hobby. We're electricians. He goes, well, you don't have to pay me next week if you make me a seat for my Sportster. So I made him a seat for the Sportster, and he was happy. And it really did look good. Nice little solo seat.
Now, when you were doing these seats originally, were you making the pan or using an old pan and strip it off the stock seat?
Norton, I used the stock pan twice.
Okay.
The Sportster, I used the solo seat that was a junky one, and I made a new seat on top. So then he goes to the Harley shop in Hartford, Connecticut, which was owned by Sal Skirbo. He was our big hero at that time. He had won the Jack Pine and everything. He was this Italian guy that wasn't afraid of anything. And so he says to Jimmy, he goes, where'd you get that seat? He says, well, Mike made it. He says, I thought that guy was an electrician. He says, yeah, but he made the seat. So Sal calls me up. He says, I need 5 of them for Saturday. And I said, I can't do 5. I only can do 1. He said, bring in 5 on Saturday. I'll give you $25 each for them. So I scramble around and figure out how to make up 5 seats. I take them over there, get a parking ticket in front of his Harley shop with my pickup truck. He gives me the money. So later on that Saturday afternoon, I get home and my wife says, that Harley guy called you up. So I call Sal and I go, hey, Sal, this is Mike. I said, but I already spent your money. I got kids and everything, and that money's gone already. He said, no. He said, I sold 4 of them already. And I'm going to put one on my bike for Sunday, and I need 10 more. It all started like that. I never planned it. So I started making seats part-time for a couple of years, and I remained an electrician, became a small electrical contractor, and I make seats. And finally, before you knew it, my driveway all the time is all crowded up with motorcycles and guys that want seats being made on the weekend. And I go, I got to decide what I'm going to do. So in 1968, I had to decide, going to be an electrical contractor or are you going to make motorcycle parts? So I decided motorcycles are a lot more fun.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So in 1968, I went full time.
So you went full time out of your house in 68.
Yeah.
And by 71, did you move into a shop yet, or were you still in the house?
By the late part of 68, I moved into a small shop, actually 400 square feet. That's like 20 by 20.
Wow. That's a double car garage.
Yeah, it was. Not quite. And then I had 2 people in it. I had a sewer and an assembler. So we did all the work. And I learned to sew myself and fix sewing machines, the whole deal. And then, if you think back, if you study motorcycle history, 69 was an incredible year in motorcycling, one of the biggest ones ever, because the Honda 4-cylinder came out, 750K bike.
Yep.
The Easy Rider movie came out. Yep. And the Easy Rider magazine got started. And the Vietnam vets were coming home. And so the vets were coming home from Vietnam, and they wanted to make a sociological statement. And all they wanted to do was look like the Easy Rider. That was the most curse they could put on the government, is to look like the Easy Rider. So they all wanted Japanese bikes converted into choppers. So they wanted high back seats, and that's where I came from. So I never planned it. So like I said earlier, in the 60s, there was about 65,000 new bikes a year registered. In the mid 70s, there was 1.5 million new bikes a year registered.
Whoa.
That's the dynamic. Growth was beyond belief. It was like a bomb going off. And I only did one thing right. I had a tiger by the tail, and I held on to it.
You were one of the first guys making seats, right?
Yeah, there was any seat before me was made in an upholstery shop, redone by a car trim guy. And I was the first guy to say, I'm going to make a factory that produces the complete aftermarket seat. So you bought a new bike. Now from me, you can buy a complete motorcycle seat for your bike. So I get all the fittings down. I get all the bikes. I did all the important applications. So it was like if you had a sports car, you could take out the stock seats and put Recaro seats in it.
Yeah.
So that was my concept. I'll do that for motorcycles.
So let me ask you this. The seat pans went from metal to fiberglass to and now plastic. Is that right, or am I wrong?
What I did is, first few seats I made them with the stock pans. Then I made a wooden base plate seat, and I sold those, and I put an ad in Cycle World, and it was a high back rat tail seat, and I called the Widowmaker, and I sold those. And at the same time, I set up to make metal base plates. So I set up a machine shop to trim 16 gauge sheet metal, and I had welders in there and everything. So I would make complete metal pans.
Okay.
Made everything in metal until 1980. And then when I moved to California, I switched everything over to Fibertech.
Okay. And are you still fiberglass or are you plastic now?
No, it's all fiberglass still.
All fiberglass? Okay. And I know that
plastic does it is. It's strong enough for all the backrest and everything, you know?
Oh, yeah. I know the bikes that you do for the builders like Ron Sims and a lot of people, you would come in and do the fiberglass pans, make the mold, because they were one-off bikes. They weren't production.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times you'd have to come in and actually make a special mold for that seat. And you had a real fast turnaround time on that also. Do you still do that where people bring in the custom builds?
Yeah. You know, if you have anything other than a stock bike, like stretch gas tanks or bigger fenders, then the base plate, the regular seat doesn't fit. So you come into our shop and we tape off the bike and make a base plate out of fiberglass for you. Then we shape the foam and everything.
Yeah.
So that's a custom riding service. We're still doing it the same exact way, basically, as we did it with you and Ron in those days.
Yeah. They work and everything form fits right in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's the way to
folds around everything, you know?
Sure. Build the bike any way you want it, any chassis, any frame. Bring the battery, because we've got to step over the battery.
Yep.
And when we can make any shape one off, really easy.
Yeah. Beautiful work, man. So then let's see here. You went to Bonneville with an electric record-breaking motorcycle in 1974.
Well, in 1970, I thought about making electric-powered motorcycles because there was the gas crunch, and everybody was waiting in line for gasoline. This is the post-Carter recession, you know. So I decided, well, what we should do is be like the electric motorcycle. We're going to be like Honda. We're going to go really big time, but we're going to make them electric. So I designed an electric bike called City Bike, and it would go 40 miles an hour for 30 miles. And I started selling them, and everybody said, well, the problem with electric vehicles is they won't go fast. So then in 1973, I made a Bonneville bike, and I used lead acid cell batteries. And I was the first guy to go over 100 miles an hour in electricity. So I went 101 at Bonneville National. And that was lead acid cell batteries. You used diehards, actually. So I came home, and this company in Pawcatuck, Connecticut called Yardney Electric made silver zinc batteries for nuclear-powered submarines right there in Connecticut. So the big shot come up to my office. I was in Connecticut. And he said, well, you know, we can make you a battery that would be 5 times more powerful per pound than lead acid cell batteries. He says, can you imagine how fast a bike could go? He says, we want to sponsor you, co-sponsor you. So we want to work with you. You build a new bike, and then we'll build a battery that can give you like unbelievable 350 horsepower. So I said, well, how much a battery like that cost? He says, well, that's $100,000 for a battery. And this is in 1973, 1974. I said, well, I have $100,000 for a battery. He says, well, the expensive part's the silver. You know, they're about half silver inside. He said, but because we make batteries for nuclear-powered submarines, we have a vault with Navy silver in. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the silver out of the vault and build your battery. You're going to go to Bonneville and set your new record. You're going to come home. Then we're going to take the batteries back and we're going to recycle them and put the silver back in a vault. And they lose a very small percentage, like 1 or 3% of the silver weight. Right. So we did all that. So we actually did the record on Navy silver.
I love it. I love it.
Talk about it for years.
Now, is that the one where you did 165?
Yeah, the world's record's at 165.387.
Wow.
Mike went 171 one way on the traps. Then another day it went 191, but the trap broke.
Oh, geez.
The record lasted for 38 years.
Damn.
Fastest guy in electricity for 38 years.
Wow. That's a long-standing record right there. I mean, that's really respectable speed for back then.
Oh, in those days?
Yeah.
I say nobody saw any electric vehicle that could go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is people don't understand, we go out on the street and we work real hard to take a street bike and maybe hit $150, but we just barely touch $150 and we back off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you got to run that through a mile and average that speed, and then you got to come back and do it again and average, right?
Yeah, actually what you do is you accelerate for 2 miles, then you take the light, then they time you for the mile.
Yeah.
At about 4 miles to slow down.
Yeah.
Then to set a record, you got to come back an hour later going the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which averages it out, makes it fair in case there was any windage or anything like that.
They averaged it, and it has to be done within an hour. So, but that's really hard on electric vehicles because on the lead acid cell ones, they would be almost out of power when you went one way.
Yeah.
So you had to have very high differential gear ratios, sprocket ratios to save power. So you spend more time managing the energy in the battery than you do anything else with the lead acid cell. But with the silver zinc bike, the thing just had power all day long.
Let me ask you this. So you made the run, and then within an hour, you had to make the second run. Did you put in different batteries or charge it?
Let you touch you can't do anything.
Well, you can't touch it. Okay.
No, you can't charge it. You can't. They don't even let you walk up to it with wrenches. They impound you.
Yeah. Okay.
At the other end.
Can you imagine what you could have done with the technology we have now?
Well, that's what it's going on now. Now they have the lithium-ion batteries.
Yeah.
And they have the alternating current motors and a controller. Yeah. We didn't have any of that stuff.
Right. I mean, that's a hell of a feat for what you were working with right there.
Actually, I got motors out of A-4B fighter planes. I used their starter motors to run at Bonneville.
That's crazy, man. So then after Bonneville, you climbed Mount Washington with an electric motorcycle?
Yeah, well, Mount Washington is the highest peak in the Northeast.
Yeah.
There's an auto road there, and no electric vehicle ever had climbed Mount Washington. That's another thing in those days. When you had a lead acid cell vehicle, they were hard to climb hills with because they were heavy and didn't have a lot of power, right? So my friend and I, Charles MacArthur, we got the bike and changed the gear ratio and rode up Mount Washington, the first electric vehicle ever to ascend the Mount Washington Auto Road. And actually, that bike is in the museum at the Mount Washington Museum, Auto Road Museum now.
Wow. Wow, that is cool. So I know after that, you also did this Sparrow project and the Merlin, right? The Sparrow was electric?
Later on, in 95, we did the first Sparrow. And it was a one-man electric car. And the idea was you make a small car, 3 wheels, electric powered, and you could get around in traffic better, and you can park like a motorcycle, and it can be small, you make a one-man car. So then between 1998 and 2003, we sold 300 of those.
Wow.
and people still look for them. And they, I get a call every week, hey, I bought a used Sparrow. How do I get it, modernized? And some guys actually are putting lithium-ion batteries in them and AC motors and stuff.
That's a collectible motorcycle right there.
It's a special interest, small group, but these days, electric vehicles are much more accepted, you see.
Yeah.
So
I remember the Merlin also. You had, I think, was that a Harley engine in the Merlin?
On the front of it, yeah.
Yeah. It was sitting sideways.
Yeah, I was sitting sideways like an old Bugatti, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
It got the air over the cylinders, evenly and all that.
Nice air, yeah.
So the gunfighter seats, those were the big thing for a long time. When did you come out with those?
The gunfighter seat, we designed it at Daytona Bike Week in 1981.
Wow.
I walked down the street in Daytona. Bike Week's the big thing, and people on the East Coast always go to Daytona for Bike Week,
Yeah.
See what's new. That's what we always did. Now you find out what's new on the internet, But in those days, you went to rallies to figure out what's going on. So I'm walking down the street, Main Street in Daytona Beach, and everybody's got high back seats and a lot of Corbins. I mean, we were pretty much dominating the market for aftermarket seats. And I go, we just need something new. We got to get something that looks different, that everybody likes. So I got the idea from like the way a sprint car looks. You know how you sit in a sprint car and then the back of it tails off and back of your body?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what the back of the seat looked like, yeah.
Yeah, so I get to thinking, well, make everybody, all these guys ride now, almost everybody rides solo anyway with the custom bikes,
Yeah.
So I'm going to make a seat. It's going to be like a back of a speedway car and kind of blend right into the fender go from your lower tailbone right flat back,
Yeah.
Man, it became a rage. Everybody wanted that, and they didn't cost much money. They were simple. And then then in 84, 83, the FXR came out. Remember that? Everybody wanted a gunfighter seat on FXR. Yeah.
You know what else was good about it is you could actually sit a girl on the back part of that.
You can sit on it. It's still foam.
Yeah.
It's not the greatest shape in the world, but I mean, you can ride around a little bit with a passenger on there.
Yeah, back then a lot of time they were lucky to sit on the fender, so
Yeah.
they felt pretty special,
That's
And then you came out with another version, like was cut off like right behind where the seat comes up. And was that called something else or the gunfighter?
Well, we had the gunfighter, then we had the rumble seat, which it looked like a gunfighter in the back, but the top of the back folded up and became a backrest for the passenger.
Okay.
A rumble seat. We got the name from the rumble seat on the early Fords. Remember, they had the rumble seat, 32 Ford and all that. That's where we got the idea for that. Then I was the first guy to put a front backrest in a motorcycle seat in 1974. And now everybody does it, Harley and BMW, everybody has backrests in the front seats. So
yeah, it really helps on touring.
Yeah, about any innovation that's happened in motorcycle seats came from Corbin.
Right on. That's why you're the idea man on your email.
The idea
man, the idea guy.
Idea guy.
So also, what about this gym equipment that you were making?
Yeah, well, I had a really great machine shop and welding shop and tube bending in my Connecticut shop. And I was a marathoner, a long distance runner, and just a hobby weightlifter. I only weighed like 180 pounds. I was too heavy to be a runner and too small to be a bodybuilder. So I started, and in the 70s, there was a big physical fitness rage. Everybody was becoming a runner or a bodybuilder. And thanks to Arnold, bodybuilding really got big, right? So I decided I needed more products from my metal shop. So I started designing bodybuilding equipment. And I sold them to professional gymnasiums and some football teams. And I did Miami Dolphins had a line of my equipment, and the Green Bay Packers. And we painted them the team colors and everything, you know. And then we sponsored some bodybuilding competitions, and we sponsored the Olympiad in Cleveland, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. And Arnold put that on, and we were the main sponsor of that. So we got quite a few orders from gymnasiums at that time. And in those days, the famous company, the big company was Nautilus, if you remember that word.
Oh, yeah, I remember Nautilus. Did you sell to them?
No, Nautilus, they had their own line of equipment. They had
right. Yeah. Yeah, they had the gyms and equipment. Yeah.
Yeah, my machines all ran on ball bearings, and theirs ran on chains and cams. So mine was a cleaner negative resistant, you know, like you didn't have the drag of the friction of the cam and the chain. So they liked that a lot better. But we did pretty good with it, but we never got big like Nautilus was. They had a big name, a lot of money.
So what right now in this day and age, what's your biggest project or your business?
Well, right now, the seat thing has been the mainstay of my whole career, basically. I'm on my 55th year of making motorcycle seats.
Wow.
So we're in Hollister, California, and we have 100 people work here. And we make seats every day. And sometimes we're so diversified now, sometimes out of 100 seats, no two are the same. Because we offer the rider a lot of different colors and choice of materials and backrest options, electric heat. We even have a hot and cold seat, you know, so you can place a personalized order, color coordinate it to your bike, things like that. So we're working on personalization through the internet.
I got a new nickname for you.
Yeah.
The Godfather of seats.
Godfather of seats.
Yeah, because that's what you are. You were before everybody.
The license plate on my Denali is Seat Ace.
Right on, Mike, man. It's been great talking to you. I mean, you're just amazing, all the accomplishments you've got. You got anything else before we close out that you want to add?
Well, keep riding motorcycles. That's the main thing, you know.
Oh, yeah. I can't stop doing that. I've tried before. It doesn't work.
It's the best way to keep your head straight.
It is. All right, brother. Very good talking to you, man. Hope to see you soon, okay?
Had fun, Rusty. Ride safe.